Hi, and welcome to another video on Azure Fundamentals. So let's get started with the questions. So the question is that you need to purchase a third-party virtual security appliance that you will deploy to an Azure subscription. What should you use? And the options are A. Azure subscriptions, B. Azure Security Center, C. Azure Marketplace, and D. Microsoft Store. And the correct option is the Azure Marketplace. The Azure Marketplace is a digital marketplace that offers a wide range of third-party virtual appliances, including security appliances that can be deployed to an Azure subscription. And this is just an overview of this Azure Marketplace. I have taken this snapshot directly from the web. And here you can see that we can get the virtual appliances of all these categories, including the security that we are talking about, such as the NG Firewall by Palo Alto, NetGate, pfSense Plus Firewall, and etc. Beside the security, there are also these other categories such as DevOps, compute, blockchain, AI, and etc. So if you want to use any service or any application or virtual appliance that is provided by a third party and integrated inside Microsoft Azure, then the go-to place is the Microsoft Azure Marketplace. Question number 62 is that you plan to deploy a service to Azure virtual machines. You need to ensure that the service will be available if a data center fails. What should you use as part of the virtual machine deployment? The options are option A, availability sets, option B, proximity placement groups, option C, host groups, and option D, availability zones. And the correct option is the availability zone. So again, I have already used this diagram. So the availability zones are basically multiple geographical regions inside the Azure region, and each availability zone then contains one or multiple data centers. So let's suppose if you deploy the virtual machine or the specific service across multiple availability zones inside data center. So if one data center fails, the service can be made available from the second availability zone and the secondary data center. So that is the feature of the Azure high availability, that at the very high level we have the regions. Inside the region we have multiple availability zones. Inside each availability zone then we have multiple data centers, and again inside the data center we have the redundancy at the server level and the hardware level. So that is all about the high availability. Question number 63 is that your company has a Azure subscription that contains resources in several regions. Here we are talking about regions. You need to ensure that administrators can only create resources in those regions. What should you use? And the options are A, read-only lock, option B, an Azure policy, option C, a management group, and option D, a reservation. And the correct option is the Azure policy. So to ensure that administrator can only create resources in specific regions, you should use Azure policy. Azure policy is a service in Azure that you use to create, assign, and manage policies. These policies enforce different rules and effects over your resources, so those resources stay compliant with your corporate standards and several service level agreements. You can use Azure policy to enforce policies that limit the regions available for resource creation. Question number 64 is that what is the function of site-to-site VPN? So the keyword is site-to-site. We have also the P2S or the point-to-site VPN. But here we are talking about site-to-site VPN. And the options are A, provides a secure connection between a computer on a public network and the corporate network. B, provide a dedicated private connection to Azure that does not travel over the internet. And C, provides a connection from an on-premises VPN device to Azure VPN gateway. And the correct option is The option C, that the site-to-site VPN used to provide a connection from an on-premises VPN device to an Azure VPN gateway. So always remember that the site-to-site VPN is between two VPN gateways or between two VPN devices. While the point-to-site VPN, it is basically between a individual client or between an individual computer to a VPN gateway. So that is the difference. And this one is also wrong because the VPN is used for travel over the internet to secure your connection over the public media such as the internet. And this is the explanation that the site-to-site VPN gateway connection is used to connect your on-premises network to an Azure virtual network over an IPsec, key Internet Key Exchange, and it has two versions, Key Exchange version 1 and version 2 VPN tunnel. This type of connection requires a VPN device located on premises that has an externally facing public IP address assigned to it. And this is a diagrammatic view of this connection. So here we have our on-premises network, and here you must have a VPN device, let's suppose a firewall, that will use this public IP to make VPN, site-to-site VPN with your VPN gateway inside Azure. And this is known as the VPN tunnel over the internet. And the tunnel means that all your traffic is encrypted and traveling inside a virtual tunnel. Question number 65 is that you need to manage containers. Which two services can you use? Each correct answer represents a complete solution, and the options are A, Azure Virtual Desktop, B, Azure Virtual Machines, C, Azure Functions, D, Azure Containers Instances, and E, Azure Kubernetes Service, AKS. And the correct option is the Azure Container Services and the Azure Kubernetes Service, that is AKS. And this is the explanation or definition of these two services. You can pause the video and read the explanation if you want to. Question number 66 is that you plan to deploy several Azure virtual machines. You need to ensure that the services running on virtual machines are available if a single data center fails. Again, we have a question about high availability. Solution, you deploy the virtual machines across two or more availability zones. Does this meet the goal? And the options are yes or no. And of course, the answer is yes, as we already talked about in the previous question, that when you deploy your virtual machine, let's suppose this is my virtual machine VM1 across two availability zone, then if one availability zone or if there is some issue with one data center inside one availability zone, your services can still made be available from the secondary availability zone because you have deployed your VM or service in two availability zones. So that is the feature of high availability. Question number 67 is that one of the benefits of Azure SQL data warehouse is that high availability is built into the platform. Instructions about the question are that review the underlying text. If it makes the statement correct, select no changes is needed. If the statement is incorrect, select the answer choice that make the statement correct. So if this statement is correct, we will choose the no change is needed. And if this is not correct, then we will choose another option. So options are A, no change is needed. It means that the statement is correct, that SQL data warehouse is having built-in high availability. Option B, automatic scaling. C, data compression, and D, versioning. And the correct option is yes, that the benefit of Azure SQL data warehouse is that high availability is built in into the platform and you don't need any change. Next question is that you plan to deploy several Azure virtual machines. You need to ensure that the services running on the virtual machines are available if a single data center fails. Again, we have the availability question. Solution, you deploy the virtual machines to two or more regions. Now we are talking about region. Does this meet the goal? And the options are yes. So again, the high availability at the very high level, we have the regions. Let's suppose this is region 1 and here we have region 2. And inside regions we have availability zones. Let's have availability zone 1, availability zone 2, and availability zone 3. In the same manner, we have availability zone 1, 2, and 3. So of course, if you deploy your services across multiple regions, and if there is some issue with the one region, then your services can be made available from the second region. So region is very large geographical area. The services in one region can be affected due to a very huge disruptions such as the tornadoes or earthquake in a very large area. And if you have the services in a second region, then this disruption can be mitigated through availability of services from the secondary region. Question number 69 is that at which OSI layer does express route operate? And the options are A, layer 2, B, layer 3, C, layer 5, and D, layer 7. And the correct option is the layer 3. So there was some confusion about this question on many online forums. The right answer was selected as the layer 2, but this is direct from the Microsoft, and here we can see that it specifically say that express routes operates at in layer 3. So the layer 3 is the correct option. Question number 70 is that you plan to store 20 terabyte of data in Azure. The data will be accessed infrequently and visualized by using Microsoft Power BI. You need to recommend a storage solution for the data. Which two solutions should you recommend? Each answer presents a complete solution. The options are A, Azure Data Lake, B, Azure Cosmos DB, C, Azure SQL Data Warehouse, D, Azure SQL Database, and E, Azure Database for PostgreSQL. And the correct options are the Azure Data Lake and the Azure SQL Data Warehouse. So again, this is the explanation of the answers. You can pause the video and read it if you like. Question number 71 is that an Azure administrator plans to run a PowerShell script that creates Azure resources. You need to recommend which computer configuration to use to run the script. Solution: run the script from a computer that runs Linux and has the Azure CLI tools installed. Does this meet the goal? The options are A, yes, B, no, and the correct option is no. Why? It is because a PowerShell script is a file that contains PowerShell commandlet and code. A PowerShell script needs to be run in PowerShell. PowerShell can now be installed on Linux. However, the question states that the computer has Azure CLI tools, not the PowerShell installed. Therefore, this solution does not meet the goal. So for the PowerShell script, you need the PowerShell. And here we are talking about Azure CLI. This is why this answer is not correct, and this Power CLI will not meet our goal. Again, an Azure administrator plans to run a PowerShell script that creates Azure resources. You need to recommend which computer configuration to use to run the script. This time the solution is to run the script from a computer that runs Chrome OS and uses Azure Cloud Shell. Does this meet the goal? And this time the answer is yes, because for the command script or the PowerShell script, the Azure Cloud Shell does meet the requirement. It is because a PowerShell script is a file that contains PowerShell commandlets or CMDlets and code. A PowerShell script needs to be run in PowerShell. With the Azure Cloud Shell, you can run PowerShell commandlet and scripts in a web browser. You log into the Azure portal and select the Azure Cloud Shell option. This will open a PowerShell session in the web browser, the Azure Cloud Shell has the necessary Azure PowerShell module installed. So the Azure Cloud Shell has the built-in PowerShell and it will meet our goal of running the PowerShell scripts. Again, we have the same question that an Azure administrator plans to run the PowerShell script that creates Azure resource. You need to recommend which computer configuration to use to run the scripts. This time the solution is to run the scripts on a computer that runs macOS and has PowerShell Core 6.0 installed. Does this meet the goal? And the options are yes or no. And the correct option is yes, because the PowerShell Core will enable us to run the PowerShell scripts. So the computer has since PowerShell Core 6.0 installed, therefore this solution does meet the goal. Question number 74 is again we have the same question. This time the solution, let me read the question first. You have an Azure environment. You need to create a new Azure virtual machine from a tablet that runs the Android operating system. Solution, you use Bash in Azure Cloud Shell. Does this meet the goal? Options are yes or no. And the correct option is yes. It is because with Azure Cloud Shell, you can create virtual machine using Bash or PowerShell. Azure Cloud Shell is an interactive, authenticated, browser accessible shell for managing Azure resources. It provides the flexibility of choosing the shell experience that best suits the way you work, either Bash or PowerShell. And the question 2075 and the last question is that you have an on-premises application that sends email notification automatically based on a role. You plan to migrate the application to Azure. You need to recommend a serverless computing solution for the application. What should you include in the recommendation? And the options are A, web app, B, a server image in Azure Marketplace, C, a logic app, and D, an API app. And the correct answer is the Logic app. Azure Logic app is a cloud service that helps you schedule, automate, and orchestrate tasks, business processes, and workflows when you need to integrate apps, data, system, and services across enterprises or organizations. So that's all for today. Please like and subscribe and stay tuned for the next video. Thank you and bye.